week. Ifeoma, thank you for joining us today. Talk to us about this investors wanting to place unmet bids from last week's PMA. What can you tell us?
Thank you very much for having me. So last week was a kind of do or die affair because subscription was a lot at the NTB's auction. And this week we've also seen demands mainly by pension funds coming to the markets at the long end of the builds of the NTB spectrum, which could indicate that rates are peaking at the last stop rates levels at around 9.75%. So we expect a lot of demand at next week's auction too.
Okay, because speaking to a trader earlier today, he was telling me that investors will be looking to demand more to hold on to government securities. And I was talking to him about how this goes against what the CBN had tried to achieve, or perhaps even achieved last year, owing to the implications of higher borrowing costs for the fiscal authorities. But how do you see this playing out? Are we heading back to those double-digit scenarios?
Well, that's left to be seen, because if you compare the offer of the OMO auction and NTB auction from a couple of years back and you compare it to this year, the reduction has been very drastic. For the last couple of months, even today, we saw a lot of demand for the CBN special bills because a lot of demand is in the market, but the demand is very they are very hard to meet since the offer from the suppliers, from CBN and DMO, has been very low. So it's literally a do or die affair. At any rates where investors find it to be profitable, they will quickly snap it up in the markets.
Okay, let's come down to how trading played out today. What kind of play did we see on the yield curve?
Well, it's been relatively quiet, but with some demand at the long end of the NTBs and the OMO spectrum. Since the bills there are ranging around 8.5 to 9.5%, so it's more profitable for investors to cherry pick at that end more than the short to the medium term bills. So we saw more demand at those ends currently, more than the short and the medium tenor bills.
Okay, but I know that liquidity levels are still low at the market. How is this impact? I mean, to what extent does this determine market direction going forward?
Well, everyone is just holding their breath and they are being cautious. Although liquidity improved from last week's situation where market players were constant borrowers at the CBN standing lending facility window, when FAC was paid at the end of the week, it helped to ease tensions. However, it wasn't enough since we had a retail auction last week, so that took away a chunk of the FAC payment. So everyone is just being cautious in the market so they don't strain their funding levels.
But still speaking about auction, you're expecting one tomorrow. What can you tell us? What's the likelihood of that happening?
Well, it depends on the prerogative of the CBN, but owing to the 30 billion maturities which was paid yesterday, we expect a likely OMO auction at same levels, around 20 billion offered, and we don't expect a change in stop rates either.
Okay, let's quickly move on to the FX markets. Now we're seeing higher oil prices are still persisting today at around just over $69 per barrel, but we haven't seen a significant increase in the FX reserves. Now, is this an indication that there is still a huge backlog that the CBN is still clearing? This is a conversation I have all the time with traders, and I'm just wondering at what point there will be a turn in terms of making a dent on that backlog.
Yes, so the CBN has assured us and assured investors that they're working very hard to meet any backlog of FX payments. So we'll just take their word for that and continue to watch the markets.
Well, how has the naira traded versus the dollar so far this week?
Well, relatively, the rates have been unchanged. There has been little activity in the market, so everyone is just being cautious because they are unsure of where market is going to move next. Okay,
speaking of still on direction, the MPC meeting, the next one is this month. We know that, I mean, last meeting, not much changed, but what do you expect? What are market expectations this time?
Market expectation is still the same. The CBN has been on the same policy rates from the beginning of this year, so we don't expect any rate change either. We expect the CBN to continue on the levels where they currently are.
Okay, and for the rest of the week, what is your forecast? Are we to expect that cautious, quiet trading, or are you expecting any? What is the chance of some spark at the market?
Well, we still expect that cautious trading, but in the bond market, we expect more demand since there's a bond auction next week and investors are expecting higher rates. So we expect more activity on that end, more than in the treasury bill space.
Okay.